Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired and taken care of and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about what to do when your husband betrays you. My guest, Isabel, discovered her husband was having an affair when she was 7 months pregnant. She was so hurt, lonely, and depressed, she even had suicidal ideation. Even when she went all in on the 6 intimacy skills, her husband was confused and skeptical. But today, her marriage is peaceful, joyful, and better than it has ever been. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. That's coming up. But first, let's talk about the living nightmare of your husband betraying you. There is no worse feeling than discovering your worst fear has come true. If most people knew that he did that, they would tell you he doesn't deserve you, which feels validating because what he did was low and it was wrong, and you don't deserve that. But it's also controlling and bossy to say you deserve better or he doesn't deserve you. I used to be one of those bossy, controlling people. In my first book, I thought that I was the expert on everyone's life, and I suggested that you should leave a man who betrays you. But I had to eat a lot of humble pie since then because women whose husbands have betrayed them keep showing up on our campus and blowing my mind by fixing their marriages. And I don't mean just keeping them together. I mean, making their marriages shiny and amazing again, sometimes shinier than they'd ever been. It's another great example of how no one else can decide what's best for you. I am not the expert on anyone else's marriage. You're the expert on your own life, and whether someone else thinks you should stay or you should go is pretty irrelevant. It's nice to have choices and to have people support your decision, though, which is why we put a stake in the ground long ago and said, we're here to support women who want to fix their marriages, no matter what they've done or no matter what their husbands have done. It takes so much courage and so much humility and commitment and accountability to fix your marriage. And you shouldn't have to do it alone, but only you know if that's the right thing for you. Heck, you don't even have to want to stay some days. I mean, some days you might think it's stupid and I feel like giving up on my marriage because it hurts so bad. That's understandable. Those feelings need to have their day in the sun in a safe place where everyone around you is like, yeah, that really sucks. Wow. I'm sorry you're going through that. And then they also say, I went through something like that too. And then they say, hey, how are you going to make yourself happy today? Or what if you had a magic wand? How would your marriage look then? Or some of the other powerful questions that the coaches on our campus are always asking. Places like that, places like our campus, they are not easy to come by. But that kind of support is what makes our campus so special and so valuable, because there's certainly no greater accomplishment in the world than saving your family by becoming your best self. And by your best self, I don't mean some kind of saint who just sucks it up and suffers. No, I mean a woman who has skills. She's got skills. She knows how to love, how to be loved in return, and how to honor herself. And from what I hear from women who have been there, there is nothing better than the triumph of walking through a betrayal and coming out on the other side with a stronger, more intimate, passionate, playful, peaceful marriage than ever. I can't think of anything I admire more. Something big is happening here on the Laura Doyle campus, and you are invited. Hundreds of women have become experts on the 6 intimacy skills and transformed their marriages by becoming certified Laura Doyle relationship coaches who live their purpose, have more intimacy, and earn for their families. In my free masterclass, Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy, How to Have All Three and Help Others Do the Same, I share directly from our popular relationship coach training and certification course about the number one most important qualification for becoming a successful relationship coach. I also reveal the indispensable first step to having a passionate, peaceful relationship and how to share it with other women. I explain about why our coaches have an unfair advantage over other relationship coaches and counselors. And I go step by step through our proven coaching curriculum and why it's so effective in saving marriages and empowering coaches. Register today for Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy. Have all three and help others do the same at lauradoyle.org/purpose. That's lauradoyle.org/purpose. My guest Isabel discovered her husband was having an affair when she was 7 months pregnant. She was so hurt, lonely, and depressed. She even had suicidal ideation. Then when she decided to go all in on the 6 intimacy skills, her husband was confused and skeptical. But today, her marriage is peaceful, joyful, and better than it has ever been. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Isabel, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to get to hear your story today.
Hi, Laura. So great to be here with you. Oh, yeah, that was a painful time. And we were actually just newly married a year in. I thought things were going well. I had just started my MBA program, newly married, first baby. Yeah. And, I'd never really checked his phone. I just let him be. But for some reason, there's just one instance where I just felt like this, I don't know, something inside me said, check his phone. And that's when I discovered that he was in contact with someone with work and, 7 months pregnant, just a lot of emotions going on. I actually confronted him about it. And he kind of just looked at me like, yeah, so what? Like, almost like it didn't matter what I said or did. And, I was just in tears, and we actually had to go to a family function later that evening. And I was just so angry, hurt. I was confused. I had no idea what was going on. I actually told him, I said, do you not find me attractive? Do you not love me? And he kept telling me, no, I do. Like, I never wanted to hurt you. He just kept saying that. And what I could see, I don't know if he thought I was just going to tell everyone there at the event. No, I just kept to myself. I was just processing. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? We're bringing a child into the world. We're still in the newlywed phase, I thought. And it was so confusing. And that was just really painful. Gave birth in January 2020. So right before the pandemic. And it was so difficult to navigate through that. Being a new mom, new marriage, working full time, but I was on maternity leave, thank goodness. And I was in school. So juggling all that was very challenging. And I had no idea what to do. So I thought, okay, well, maybe therapy is the way to go, marriage counseling. So I decided to take that route with our insurance plan and said, okay, this person must know about marriage. So yeah, that just made things worse. I just felt like I was getting nowhere. I would leave the sessions really resentful, really angry, felt like I wasn't being heard. And I had the therapist one time just stop me and pretty much make an amends to my husband for how I was showing up. And I'm like, wait, he's the one that hurt me. Why do I have to do that? Like, we need to talk about what's going on here. I cannot continue being in this path because I just felt like I was operating just robotic. I felt like I wasn't being myself. I didn't want to even connect with my family, with his family, with really anyone. I was really isolating. And even when people would ask me for help with a baby, I was like, no, I got this. I was trying to put on this front, like everything was fine. And it just got to a point where I'm like, I can't continue like this. I cannot. This is not sustaining. And I went to
Yeah.
his brother, everything to try to fix it, you name it. Still kept going back to therapy, wasn't working. And then I discovered a infidelity-based program. And so I signed us up for it in December of 2020. And I told my husband, well, let's just try it. And he actually was in. He's like, okay, well, I don't know. But he showed up and we did this week intensive with this infidelity trained therapist, actually. And we did that. And I still felt a little stuck. I was still feeling hurt, resentful, not knowing what was happening, what was going on. And I said, okay, well, I must go through therapy again and, find an expert through there. So I went to another therapist and I felt like I was
You're still
making,
seeking. You're still trying
yeah,
to, yeah, find some peace within yourself at least. And
right.
where else were you going to go? Right. You didn't,
Hmm.
oh gosh, because it's so painful. It's incredibly painful what you're
Yeah.
describing.
It was just a cycle. I'm like, okay, on to the next therapist. And I'm like, well, let's get our parents involved and thought maybe they could help. Well, that just blew into a disaster. I know they meant well, but it was a lot of the fears that they were spilling onto. And they don't have, the skills like I do now. There's no playbook or anything that says, hey, here's a guide on how to get through parenting or infidelity or, things like that. So there may be stuff out there, but it was just a battle. And I just kept going back. And, I even went to many therapists to try to even diagnose my husband as an addict and all these things, just back and forth, back and forth. 2021 was very painful as well to just felt like I kept seeking and seeking and seeking and nothing was working. And then at the end of the year of 2021, he disclosed more information and betrayals with different women. And I found out this was throughout our entire relationship. And that was just, oh, shattering. And that was actually during a therapy session. So I felt like I
Oh,
had no preparedness. It was like, okay, here you go. Here's the data dump of all this
oh.
new information. And
So it was no longer just this one betrayal. Like
yeah.
maybe this was a mistake. There's like,
Hmm.
this is like
Hmm.
a cancer in your marriage that's
Hmm.
growing and everything you've been doing to try to fix it.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
going on the whole time, like a horror movie.
Yeah. And I was back into that state of grief, confusion. Like I literally thought my husband had died. But when someone dies, people, they check in and they, there's that compassion and just checking in on someone to make sure they're okay. But with this, it was very lonely. It was very dark. It was, what am I doing with my life? Uh,
And you're
that's,
kind of keeping a secret too.
yeah, I'm keeping a secret. I'm like, I
This
can't,
burden, you can't be authentic in a lot of places.
yeah, yeah. I just felt like I wasn't authentic at work, even just showing up in the world. It doesn't matter who it was, family members, my husband, even with our daughter. She's 3 now, but like I can't even be myself because I have this big weight,
Yeah.
this secret that I'm holding on to, but I don't know how to handle it. I don't know what to do. The way I was showing up was really much lifeless. I was showing up really lifeless in every aspect of my life. And that was
Wow.
really painful. And so I decided to separate from him, took our daughter, and that was starting in January of 2022. And
Oh,
still doing the therapy route by myself. And my husband, I would ask him to join, and sometimes he would join. And so I'm like, okay, maybe there's some hope in there because there was still an ounce of hope. I'm like, this is not who he is. This is not him. I was in that in denial. I'm like, this is not who he is. This isn't who I married and who I met. And so
mm.
I kept going, and even did 12 steps, did that, met some amazing women through there. And then I connected with one woman there actually, and she was talking about your book. And this was actually in February of 2022. And I said, okay, well, that's working for you, but that's not going to work for me. No way. No way. So to go back to that, I was actually first introduced to your book from one of the wives that did the infidelity intensive with us. And that was after we had finished. And so that was like end of December 2020, January 2021. She said, hey, this book is great. It will help. I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He needs to gain my attention. He needs to do the work. No, I am not reading this book. Didn't even pick it up, didn't even look at it.
Which book
Well,
was it?
The Empowered Wife.
Oh, The Empowered Wife. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And so, yeah. And
It
so
wasn't time.
it was,
Time.
yeah, I felt like it wasn't time. And I said, nope. And so that February of 2022, I kept going to my friend's meeting and she kept telling about her testimony. And I said, sure, I don't know. But I kept hearing more other women speak. Oh, I just got the book. I'm going to read it. Like, okay, sure. And then I just kept getting nudges from God. I felt like, Isabel, come on, let go of your distrust. Trust this process. Trust what these women are saying. Let me help you. I said, I don't know. I was getting in my own way. April 2022, I was going through a lot. My grandfather was on his deathbed. And right before that, like I literally had picked up your book. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to Amazon. Why not? Let's just see. I started to read a little bit, and then my grandfather had passed a few days after. And I felt like I was back in the state of grief again, of processing that. Because my grandfather was a big part of my life. And so I said, okay, I'm going to stay committed to this book. So to distract myself from all that grief, I actually picked up your book at the end of that. And I couldn't put it down, Laura. I mean, I was still in grad school. I read your book faster than any of my material for school. And it was, oh my gosh, eye-opening. I felt the love, I felt the compassion, but I also felt so much accountability. And I heard myself in your story and all the testimonies that were in the book. I said, oh my gosh, now I can see why my friend picked up the book and why things are changing. And I took a leap of faith and I saw that you had the Ridiculously Happy Wives program. Joined that May. I had no idea. Laura, I was terrified. I was so terrified. I'm like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into because I thought, is this going to be like therapy? Is this going to be one of those things again? So no, I immediately jumped into your program. And I would say like the second, third call, I got coaching.
So
And
brave.
they asked me about self-care and I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. What do you mean? I don't know. I really stumped on that question. So I had to really think about that. And I just dug right in and I stayed committed. I scheduled calls every week and stayed in your community because I was hearing hope. I was hearing transformation. I was hearing stories like mine. Just so many things that I've heard. And it's just even other people in my life. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to give this book to them. I want to, I want them in this community. I dropped therapy immediately. I said, I am not going back. I am not doing any couples therapy. I'm not doing individual therapy. I just want to stay here with these women, your coaches. And I stuck with it. And that is all I did. And the first thing I did is I started from ground zero with your first episode of your podcast and worked my way up. So I diligently during, weekends, lunch hour, you name it, I was all in on your skills. I said, I am not letting this go. And then I stayed with the women that told me about the book earlier that year. I clung on to them. We created a prayer group. We're still in a group together. We share wins. We share our tears. We share everything, the breakdowns and how we can lift each other back up. And so it has changed my life. And I know that it's through the grace of God that got me where I am today, for giving me those nudges to say, trust this process. And I did. Your coaches are amazing. Coach Stephanie, Coach Tammy, Coach Sue. I mean, Coach Tammy, she helped me reveal a lot of the heart messages too, because I invested into private coaching sessions. And that's not something I would ever done in the past because I was so fearful. I'd never wanted to invest in myself because there was always this fear, oh, it's going to fail, it's not going to work, or I'm just going to get in the way and it's not going to go through. I'm going to get let down. And so this is the first time in my life where I went all in, didn't have that fear, and went in with the coaching. I mean, I'm in Colorado, so I would be at some of your calls at 5 a.m. with one of your coaches just to even listen to the women and the testimonies and hear their wins so I can stay accountable and be in the solution because that's what I wanted to be. I wanted something different. I just didn't know what it was.
Nobody ever taught you the intimacy skills before, and you
Mm-mm.
know. And then, well, I'm super impressed that from such a hurt place, right, from such a devastated place, that you were able to, I mean, it was a stretch to even read the book, right? To even
Oh, yeah.
with that title, right? Huge
Oh, yeah.
stretch. It takes a lot of humility, courage, a lot of commitment. And like you said, you had just that tiny little bit of hope,
Mm-hmm.
and you went with that. So I'm just amazed that you did all that. And because I had read too that you even had suicidal thoughts or some ideations
Yes.
during this dark time in your marriage.
Yes. And you know what? When I got in your community, and just even reading the book, just being in the podcast too, to hear other women's stories, that's when I started to feel hope and say, okay, I'm not alone in this journey. And actually started to fade. I started to feel alive again. I started to want to be close to my husband. And I I couldn't believe just within a month of being in your community, reading the book, being immersed with other women, how he wanted to get close to me. And I fell a few steps backwards.
Sure, of
And
course.
I was like, oh, this is not working.
Yeah, yeah.
This is
Okay,
not.
I want to hear about that. Well, what did you first start doing differently than you had been doing things? Because a lot of women are where you were listening to this right now. They're listening and they're like, yeah, my husband, he's betrayed me repeatedly. And like you seem pretty happy now. So they're gonna want to know what like exactly what did you do? So how did you show up differently that made him want to be around you?
Well, I went all in. I said, okay, I'm going to show up loving, forgiving. I am going to be vulnerable as best as I can at that moment. It was still scary for me.
Of course.
Um, but I started to realize like, I don't want a divorce. I don't want to be separated from my husband. I want our family together. And so I clung on to those women in the group. I stayed committed to myself to say, okay, what am I going to do differently so I have joy just for myself in this moment, whether that's asking for help with the baby or, taking a walk, taking time in prayer, doing something for myself that's going to make me happy because I didn't even know what that was. I had no idea what made me happy. And my husband did tell me years ago, get a hobby.
Oh,
And I got so offended by that. I'm like, it's because you don't want to spend time with me.
yeah. Right. Oh, instead of being able to hear maybe a heart message there that he wanted to see your
Exactly.
smile again. So yeah, it was offensive. It was hurtful to hear that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So okay, so you're walking and you're praying and getting time away from your baby. It sounds like were some of your self-care go-tos. And then that is when, okay, but what about the resentment, right? Because I mean, you were betrayed.
Hmm.
Who's not going to be resentful about that? What did you do with all that? Like, how do you show up loving and forgiving when you're feeling all that resentment like that?
Well, I had to take a really good look at myself.
Really?
I had to really dig deep and say, okay, the resentment stemmed from childhood. And this is the first time I'll be sharing this live publicly. But my view of that resentment really started around 6, 7 years old. Because I was sexually violated by a boy. that really altered my view, the world, how I saw myself, and really just men in general. I thought men were just takers, abusers, just not trustworthy. So I never gave my dad a chance. I never gave my grandfathers, not even my husband, even those before, or really anyone. I didn't trust myself. So I lost complete intimacy with those around me. And I was not showing up authentically in public and private, whether that's the workplace, in my family relationships, in my marriage, really anywhere. And so I had to really dig deep down. Okay, where's this resentment coming from? And, staying in your community, the women being so accountable for their lives, 100% responsible for everything in their lives, how they were showing up. That pushed me even further to dig deep and say, okay, where is this resentment coming from? Ah, well,
You
six,
found
7
a,
years old.
you found a
I,
smoking gun.
yeah, I've had that termite, that story in my head saying, ding, 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 do not trust anyone, not even women. I mean, it was it was terrible. I came into every situation. That person's going to betray me. That person's not going to follow through. I cannot trust them because I know they're going to abandon and walk away and hurt me. So why even bother? Even though I'm telling them, hey, I trust you. I told my husband, I trust you. Deep down, I was still fearful. I was like, okay, he's going to betray me. He's going to abandon me. He's just going to betray my trust. And
So this
so,
was your unwitting,
mhm,
self-fulfilling prophecy for him, is he's going
mhm,
to betray me. And then lo and behold,
yeah,
that's what
it's
you.
like what you focus on increases, like you say.
Oh,
So,
oh, this is rough though, Isabel. This is
mhm,
so rough because you didn't make him betray you. Like, that's not your fault that he betrayed you.
no,
So
of course not.
how does this work? Like, what do you mean? Like, it just sounds really hard to take responsibility for your part when his part is so big and hurtful, right? And everybody else around was probably, once they found out, right, saying like, yeah, oh gosh, that's terrible.
Hmm.
Maybe you should leave him, right? Did you get some of that
Oh,
from?
oh yeah, I got it from friends. Uh, they would tell me I was blind because I wanted to work on my marriage. I don't know how you do it.
Okay,
I
yeah,
couldn't do
you're
it.
a fool. You're a fool, right? For
Fearful.
trying to.
Even, yeah, even family members would say, oh, if that was me, I wouldn't be able to go through with that or stick it out. A lot of their fear,
A lot of
you
their
know,
fear came
a
out.
lot of
Yeah.
their fear came out. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And I wanted to tune that out. I was like, no, because fear is saying what if, and my faith is saying even if, like,
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
so I
That was
wanted to,
powerful.
yeah, I
That was
wanted to
powerful.
cling. I wanted to
It's,
cling on to my faith. I'm like, no, I am not going to have a legacy of divorce for my child. I don't want that. I don't want that. I love my husband. And
I
that's
love
what
it.
I knew. That's what I
Yeah.
knew.
I just love this, what you just said. It's such a wisdom mom. My fear is what if, and my faith says, even
Hmm.
if. Here's how I'm going to show up today. I'm going to show up loving. I'm going to show up forgiving. Even though there has been this betrayal, the worst has already happened. I guess the worst had already happened
Yeah.
because that was your worst fear. It sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is
And,
so vulnerable. I just appreciate so much. I feel so connected to you too, and getting to hear this authenticity. But I think I think this is what everybody wonders. Wait, what?
mhm.
How do you get across that bridge from I've been shattered to I forgive, or I still love, or I'm happier than I've ever been? And you're giving us those pieces in a way that it's hard to come by. This is very rare, wonderful wisdom. We're getting to hear from you, Isabel.
Oh,
So thank
thank
you for
you. Well, I had to realize that I had to honor myself because I never did. It was always operating from a people pleasing perspective. Oh, what does this person want? What does this person need? I never asked myself what I wanted. So when I got into your community and the woman would ask, what does Isabel need today? Like, no one's ever asked me that, so I started to really think about what I want, and I still do, if I start to feel overwhelmed, even if it's a work situation or, Laura, I can tell you, I haven't had an argument with my husband. I don't know the last time since I got in your skills. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
it's
Wait.
amazing.
Okay. All right. So, but let's back up a little bit. So you decided to show up loving and you started doing this self-care. You made yourself happy. You guys were
Yes.
separated last we heard. So,
Yes.
and you got back together or?
Yeah. And I made the choice. I didn't announce it to anyone. Literally within 7, 8 months of being in your skills, or not, like the separation, I decided just to come back home. And I told my husband, I'm ready to come back home. I don't want to continue on this separation path because the intimacy was growing closer and closer. And I fell a few steps backwards because I was disrespectful, to be quite apparent here. But my own fear was coming up. And so
Sure.
I just saw his forgiveness. I saw his love. I saw his genuine way he was being towards me, really forgiving, wanting to be vulnerable with me too.
Oh,
And I said, you know what? I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to trust God. I am going to go all in and I'm coming back home. And I didn't feel like it was necessary to announce that to anyone or anything. And peacefully just went home and just continue on that path of vulnerability, love, forgiveness. And even when I came back, like there was not an argument. It was like, hey, let's be vulnerable with each other, or I'm struggling here, or how do I get back up? And I still took time to do my self care, whether that was a nap, the one that used to never take naps. Now it's part of my self care.
you're a convert now to
Yeah.
napping. I love it.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
how controlling I was. I would berate my husband when he would nap because I'm like, you don't want to spend time with me. Why are you napping right now? And now I see the value of them. So I'm embarrassed to say that.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it feels honoring of Isabel to take naps now.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe it
100%.
wasn't a question you got to ask yourself before. You weren't allowed to take naps, maybe
Yeah.
previously. Was that like a waste of time or too
It,
lazy or
yeah, I felt like it was a waste of time. I felt like I was not being productive. I didn't really see that growing up either because my parents were go, go, go and working. And so I'm like, I never saw that growing up. And my husband was the first person I saw take that time for his self-care. So I'm like, oh, he gets it.
so that was leadership. That was leadership
Oh,
in the marriage, spiritual leadership in a way, right?
yes.
That he was like, we take naps in our family.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so all right, so you're back home. It's
Hmm.
very peaceful. You're still doing your self-care.
Oh, yeah.
Uh and so it sounds like it's going well. No big announcements, but just your family's back together.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing is we're back together. My husband is more vulnerable than ever. He is even more in his leadership with his career, a career change that's going to just impact our family for the better. Um, I'm just amazed. And I see that now. I'm like, this is the person I know. This is the person I married. There's emotional safety. We're not afraid to talk about anything that's on our minds and things that I didn't even know about his childhood that I'm learning now, and things that I never shared with him that I'm more open to sharing with him. When before it was always like, oh, I'm afraid to share that because how is he going to respond? But it was like that with everyone. I was not vulnerable. I was not authentic. And now I'm going all in. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Like this is shaped me who I am now. I'm not gonna stay in that victim mindset anymore and be bogged down by my pains. I'm gonna use my pain for purpose. And that's what I want to do. I want other women and even men, I'm sure if they hear the podcast too, like, hey, there's hope. There's hope.
Hope from to recover from betrayal, hope to feel better after suicidal ideation,
Mm-hmm.
hope to be vulnerable even when you've had a history of a trauma that's caused you to feel defensive and be defensive,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and hope that even whatever your I call it malware, whatever the stories in your head about how other people are going to show up, that you get to change those. So it sounds like that's what
Yes.
you did.
Yes.
Well, amazing. All right. Well, I want to hear, you've alluded a couple times to this part where it wasn't perfect, right? There, that you fell into, you're a mere mortal woman and there was some
Mm-hmm.
disrespect. I wanted to hear that story if we could.
Oh yeah. I mean, even with the nap, I would berate him.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just thought he didn't want, even just the telling me I needed to get a hobby.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that, what he meant by that. I just thought he didn't want to spend time with me. Um, he enjoys gardening. And so when I felt like he was out there too long, I'm like, why is it taking you so long to be out there? Like, I want to spend time with you. Well, kept poking at the bear and he just wanted to just go away from my negativity. I think it was really painful at one point. He actually told me one time that I was acting like his parents. And I'm like, ooh, ouch. This was pre-skills. I didn't know. So of course I kept going at him like, what do you mean? We're different people. Now I see what he meant because I was showing up as more of a parent than a wife. I mean, to the point where I was picking his clothes for him, Laura. It was quite ridiculous. He's a grown man that can make decisions for himself, and it was getting to that point of what he should wear.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
So,
seemed right to you, but that he was saying, yeah, you're acting like my mother, my smother mother, instead of my wife and lover that you set out to be.
oh yeah. And I would come at him too, and why don't you talk to me? Why don't you want to spend time with me? Why are you acting like this? And he would just look at me like, with no response. Just, yeah, like, I don't want to talk with you right now. But he wasn't saying that, but his body language was like, you just don't talk. Why don't you talk? So I'd get frustrated, I'd get angry, and then I started to get resentful. So I'm like, I just want your raw emotional connection. And then I realized, oh my goodness, I was not giving him that either. So I get it. I kept fighting with him all the time because I just wanted to have that emotional connection. Um, and even in public, like I would get in confrontations with family or friends because I wanted him to fight and defend me. So I would be like, nope, I'm going to be the one fighting and defending with my words and confrontations. And it just backfired, completely backfired. So I'm completely transformed out of that. I have no desire to be in any quarrels with anyone.
This is such a 180 from how you lived before. Like, so just, and it sounds like you've become much more respectful now. Because I hear the way you're talking, you can see this disrespect that you had before. And so,
Mhm.
uh, what does that look like in your relationship now?
Oh, vulnerability is key. But showing up lovingly all the time and honoring myself. So I heard this a few days ago and it says, love like you have not been hurt. So when I keep that in my mind, love like I have not been hurt, that's when I fully immerse in trusting myself, trusting God to lead me. Because that's all I want. Like my vision is to have a peaceful, loving, joyful marriage. But not only in that, in every aspect of my life, I want to show up in the world as a loving person and trusting, because trust was such a big, big thing for me. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust anybody. And
Mm.
now to be immersed in that, I mean, just starting out in your program and being on this podcast interview, that took a big leap of faith for me to say, you know what? I'm going to go all in and share vulnerability, share the painful moments, but see that you can come out to the other side transformed, that there is hope, there is joy, that pain is temporary.
I love it. So, a couple of things. One is, did you say to yourself, I'm going to be on the podcast kind of early on when you started doing the skills?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
You're like, that's where I'm going.
Yes.
I'm going to be a guest.
Yes. And I kept telling myself, I'm going to be on your podcast, Laura. And even in the community, I kept saying it to myself. And when your team reached out at the beginning of the year, my family, we got all really sick. And so I said, okay, when I get better, I'll get back. And then the fear started kicking. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't share quite yet. So I kept dragging my feet. And then I decided, you know what? No, it's time. This is about me, but it's also for the men and women out here who can hear that there is hope. There is joy at the other side if you just go all in and have that faith and honor yourself. And that's what I did. I decided to trust myself, trust this process, trust God, and say, there's only one Isabel. So honor yourself. And that's what I did.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Well, I so appreciate your courage and your vulnerability. Being a guest on the podcast is no small thing to pay forward what you've learned and create that inspiration and hope in the world. It's a big contribution to ending world divorce. So I love that. What is your marriage like today?
Oh,
What's it
Laura,
like?
it's so loving. I mean, joyful. And like I said, I don't know the last time we've had an argument. And it's beautiful to not be in that space anymore. There's no tension. We're happy to see each other. He tells me he misses me all the time. Um, I mean, it's true when the husbands say they just want their wives to be happy. My husband tells me that too. He's like, I just want to love you and protect you, and I want you to be happy. So it's a testament. When I'm happy, the whole household is happy. My daughter's happy. My husband's happy. I'm happy. Um, Gosh, even when I'm working out in our basement, he'll check in on me to make sure I'm okay.
I
So
just can't get enough. Wait,
yeah.
this is the same guy where you had to say, stop taking a nap. You just don't want to spend time with me, or why are you out in the garden so long? You don't want to spend time with me. He has to go check on you while you're working out now.
Oh yeah. He wants to check in on me. He wants to make dinner. He made a beautiful meal for me yesterday. Got all the ingredients. I mean, this is the man I know. And that's why I fell in love with him, because he's so loving, so genuine, and so thoughtful. And it just makes me emotional when I think about it. He wants to hold my hand, wants to just cuddle with me when he gets home, just
Wow.
does not want to be away from me.
Wow.
Um, and I love it. I love it because that's exactly what I wanted, but I never gave him a chance.
Wow. Amazing. And what about like checking his phone? Do you feel tempted to check his
Oh,
phone
not
or
at all. I have no
not at all?
desire, Laura.
No
I
desire.
I have no desire to check laptops, phone. No, nothing.
Nothing.
I keep on my side of the street. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do that's going to make me joyful and happy today? And I'll tell,
Wow.
and I get to do better at that, saying, hey, I need this 10 minutes for this. And my husband is so receptive to, he's like, just let me know what you need. I have this.
So you can get those breaks as you feel it come up that like Isabel needs a
Absolutely.
break right now. I better get one for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's honoring that. Well, how do you know he's not betraying you further? No.
I feel it. I feel it in my body. I feel it emotionally and physically because he wants to be with me. He's leaning in. He's having vulnerable conversations with me that we've never had before,
Wow.
showing up in a loving way, whether that's with me, our daughter, uh, everywhere. I, I get his authenticity. He wants to pray with me. Before we would not ever pray with each other. And so even before meals, he'll just want to pray with me, or I'll ask him, I would love prayers for this day. And he's like, absolutely. And
Wow.
he's
That's your
tuned
evidence.
in. He's
Your
tuned
evidence.
in to our family. There is no, I'm going to go off into another room and be on my own. No, he is present with us, whether that's watching a movie, watching funny animal videos that my daughter likes to enjoy. So he's
Wow.
all in. when before he was distant, he was either in the office, locked up in his room, not really engaged, just distant. He was physically here, but distant. And so now he'll let me know even when he's leaving work, like, oh, I just got to my car, I'm on my way. And he's really active in a men's soccer league that he's been doing even before he met me. And he'll tell me how the game went and tell me, if they're going to go get a beer afterwards or something. And I'm like, yeah, I trust you. Like, big deal. But he's so good at calling me, letting me know about everything that goes on. And I have no desire. I actually trust him more now, Laura, than I ever did before.
And that's the part that was really up to you. That's you deciding to trust, because you get a better, and you're getting a better response, but you have more peace. I hear you feeling more confident too, I think, Isabel. Is that right?
Oh, 100%. 100% in myself too.
In yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like? Give us a little before and after about your confidence in yourself, if you can.
Oh, yeah. So before, a lot of fear. And I went back to that. I think I trust you, but I don't trust you. So I would show up with my insecurities. I would show up really with a lot of anger and rage, even if it had nothing to do with me. But it was like that with everyone. And I just remember even at work, people would be like, tell me more about you. And I'm like, I'm good. You don't need to know enough about
That is hard to picture. That is hard to picture that the woman I'm talking to right now was so kind of clammed up, it sounds like.
Very, very, very. Whether that was my husband, my parents, my siblings, my in-laws, you name it. I'm like, I don't trust these people at all. Wow. They're going to hurt me. They're going to betray me. They're just not authentic, vulnerable people. But then I realized, well, I'm not authentic and vulnerable right now either. So the way I was showing up, it was almost, I was mirroring that back.
Wow. Well, it's like the floodgates are down now. And it almost sounds like you kind of thrive on this authenticity, on revealing yourself, on being vulnerable. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And I realized how exhausting it was to not being authentic in public and private. And now I'm like, okay, that is my mission here, is to be authentic both in public and private and be my full authentic self in all settings. And vulnerability has helped me so much in my marriage and even at work, really in all aspects of my life. When I show up vulnerably, I'm not getting the stories I told myself in my head. I'm getting the love, I'm getting the compassion, I'm getting like, oh yeah, me too, I've been there. So it is amazing what the skill of vulnerability has done even in my life.
It is very endearing, your vulnerability. I feel it too. I feel a lot of love and connection with you because of your vulnerability.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. What is your tip for someone who is where you were, finding out about betrayals and maybe struggling in therapy or feeling like she wants to die? And she wants what you have now, where he comes and checks on you while you're working out, makes you beautiful meals, and just shares about his day. And there is true intimacy and vulnerability between you. What's your tip for her?
Surrender. I tell myself that even now. Faith over fear. I mean, you're worth it. We all matter. Just like there's only one Isabel, there's only one Laura Doyle. That's what you go back to, just honoring yourself. There's only one us. And yes, there's twins and all these things, but there's only one unique us. And so honor yourself. And I actually would love to read this quote that I saw, because this ties in with everything. And it's an unknown, but it says, when you're going through pain, you can choose to focus on yourself or other people. When you choose to focus on serving other hurting people, that's called redemptive suffering. It is the highest and best use of your pain. And I will also quote another empowering woman because Lady Gaga has a great song. And she says in one of her songs, "Don't be a drag, just be a queen." And I'm like, yes,
Yes. Yep. I'm a Lady Gaga fan myself. So I hear you. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a great line.
yeah. Pick up Laura's book. I mean, if what you're doing now is not working, like, go all in. And that's what I did. For the women that did not trust anyone or anything, this literally changed my life.
How do you think it's affected your daughter? She's 3 now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Oh, using the self-fulfilling prophecies on her, that she is beautiful, she is loved. Even picking up toys. I say, "Oh, I would really like to see, the living room floor. Let's pick up." And before, if I would say, "Oh, it's messy. Why are we messy?" She's not going to respond to that. But if
She's
I
like, I don't
say
know.
it, if my tone is calm and collected, and I tell her, Mama would really like to see the floor. And
You're
she's
expressing a
really,
desire in a way that
yeah,
inspires even your
ex-
daughter. A 3-year-old daughter is inspired to pick up.
yes,
So you say you want to see the floor.
yes.
Wow. I mean, I
And
feel like there's a lot of moms writing that down right now, right? Because that's
yes,
big.
yes. And
Wow.
loving on her, letting her know that she's loved, and she reciprocates that back to me with hugs and kisses, and even with my husband, the way that he's showing up with her too, very compassionate, very kind, tuning into what she needs instead of just shaming her like, "Oh, why are you crying?" It's like, "No, why are you frustrated? How can we help you? What do you need?" And she'll tell us. These little kids are amazing. They're smart.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So she's getting a lot of empathy and she
Hmm.
can be vulnerable with you guys too.
Vulnerable and seeing respect and how a healthy marriage looks like.
What a home court advantage she's getting.
Oh, yeah,
You're going to pass on the skills to her. She's going to be
absolutely. that
that generation where she says, "Oh yeah, we grew up with the skills. We grew up with the intimacy skills. My mom practiced them."
Oh, yeah,
That's pretty cool. That must feel really good.
it
What,
does.
what would you say to Isabel if you could go back and tell her what you know now? What would you say?
Ah, that you are so loved, that there's, like I said, only one Isabel. Honor yourself and really take that time to honor your life. Get on that lifeboat, save you, because there's only one you. And so, that's what I would remind myself, when I had those, negative thoughts and suicide ideation. I look back and I'm like, I was not honoring myself and not putting myself on that lifeboat to say I matter. There's only one me, one unique me, and I have something to offer here. And so that's what I would tell myself, that Isabel, you are unconditionally loved and you have a life that is honoring. So use it.
And what would you say is your vision for your marriage from here?
Oh, peace. Peace and vulnerability is key. That, and I tell my husband all the time, like, that's one thing that won't change is the love that I have for him, even through any ups and downs. I'm right here to love and support him. And he reciprocates that back to me too. And so peace and vulnerability, I would say, is key. And authenticity, because that shows up everywhere in our lives. And so that is my vision, is that we just continue on that path. And it's on that path. And I cannot wait to see what more we do together as a team.
It sounds like you have a superpower of being able to be loving, unconditionally loving, like no matter what. Does it feel like a superpower?
It does. And the forgiveness is so powerful. The forgiveness that I started with myself, but also to extend that to him and to others and really step back and see things from a different lens. And so that has been really powerful for me to see that and to give that back in return.
Well, because of your accomplishments as a wife, Isabel, I'd like to present you with the Best Wife Award.
Thank you.
You are so richly deserving. You have fixed your family. You saved a family, right? There's three souls living in this abundant love and
Mhm.
authenticity and vulnerability because of your work and dedication and commitment and courage. Congratulations.
Thank you, Laura. Well, thank you for all that you do. I love you so much. What an honor to be here with you. Thank you for all that you do. I'm on your mission too to end world divorce. So
I feel it. I feel
let's
it.
keep it going.
So grateful. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you, Laura.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. On next week's podcast, we're going to talk about how to be a good wife, in case that is something you would like to be. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that John said that being with me after I had margaritas was like being with Forky from Toy Story.